It might be hard to believe it, but we have reached the end of May. Summer has officially arrived, and we're starting to figure out what exactly the Duke basketball roster is going to look like going into next season. Big fan of that situation. Duke baseball gets set to open up the NCAA postseason a little bit later today. This is Locked On Blue Devils.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you for being here with us today on Friday, May 30th, 2025, as Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. Today's show, we're going to have our good friend Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated joining me on the program to talk about the Duke basketball roster ahead of the upcoming season, what to expect with the summer moves that have been made now that we've seen the draft deadline come and go for players wanting to return to the college basketball game. Of course, the transfer portal has been closed for quite some time, so we've got a good picture of what to expect with the Blue Devils going into the new season. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and written review. You can like this video, share it with your friends if you watch us each and every day on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as we love your support always here on the program. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils, and I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. Be sure to check us out on Instagram and TikTok. Here he is. Conor O'Neill is joining us on the program today. I hope your week is going well, my friend. And here we go. We look at the calendar, and all of a sudden, 2025 is flying by.
I miss May because June feels like all the, I don't know. I just want the off season to last as long as possible. That's
Yeah, about to ramp it up here pretty quickly before we know it. We'll be in football mode and all of that sort of thing. But man, the calendar has continued to move along. We saw Wednesday's May 28th was kind of that big deadline that we kept talking about in regards to decisions that had to be made in the sport. Cedric Coward was the big one that Duke was tuned into, and he made it a couple of days prior to that deadline coming to pass. But now we've got a better picture and understanding of what this roster looks like, thanks in part to adding a couple of more pieces to the freshman class, right?
Yeah. Dame Sar almost messed that one up.
So easy to jump into Dame. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to be said that way in my head all year.
Right.
Of it. Sebastian Wilkins is a good addition as well. I don't know how much he's going to contribute, but he gives him something at the 4 spot, the direct 4 spot, right? Like, we're pretty sure Malik Brown can play there when needed, but if he's your starting center or he's your backup center, you don't want him also playing minutes at the same time that Pat Gongba is on the court. So yeah, it's a little bit like this is borrowing from JC Zembel, the publisher of the NC State site, and who does a lot, has done a lot with the Rivals transfer portal. It's kind of a Noah's Ark approach. Like, you've got 2x2 at every position for Duke right now. You've got 10 that you think are going to be in the rotation, and you got Caleb Foster and Caden Boozer, who you think are going to be your primary ball handlers. The 2 and 3 spots are kind of interchangeable the way Duke uses them, but between Isaiah Evans, Darren Harris, Dame Sar, and Nick Dame Sar and Hamenia. Yeah, Dame and Hamenia is going to be tricky for the same position too. And then Boozer and Wilkins at the 4, Gongba and Brown at the 5. It's kind of a Noah's Ark way to build a roster.
Yeah, I like that analogy there. When you've got kind of the depth and you've got a couple of different options at each position to go by and that sort of thing. I love the additions that they were able to make there with these freshmen coming in, and cannot be more excited about what to expect from Dame Sar kind of playing alongside Isaiah Evans out there. That's just big-time shot makers, I think, that Duke's going to have going into the new season. As we kind of look at the screen, and again, an overview for people to see what that current roster looks like, color-coded by years of experience. That experience piece, when you look at this, should Duke be concerned, or are there enough pieces of guys to step up in certain spots?
I mean, it's something to be concerned about. I don't know if it's a red flag. I go to Cam and Caden Boozer are freshmen. They had two of the most accomplished high school careers you can possibly have, right? Like, they won the Chipotle Nationals this past year. Part of that is because Cooper Flagg was playing in Durham and not at Mount Verde again. But they've won at every single level. They're experienced winners. They're not experienced winners at the college level, but those are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And you can get freshmen coming in with that experience level and that pedigree. I think it helps you. Dame Sarr is a freshman by definition. He turns 19 in about a week, maybe a little less. I think his birthday is June 4th. And he's been playing with men. He's been practicing against men. This is something that we're going to kind of have to retrain our brains in the way we talk about the freshmen that come over from Europe that have been playing in pro leagues for 3, 4, 5 years, playing against grown men, playing against these, college players that don't make G League rosters or don't make NBA rosters, that type of thing. Those are not going to be your typical, obviously, 17 and 18-year-olds that have just been playing against other 17 and 18-year-olds and younger. So
yeah,
I look at those three freshmen that Duke has, 3 of the 5, and think these are not your typical, green in the gills types of freshmen. They're a little more experienced. They're a little more prepared for what a college basketball freshman season is going to look like. And you add in the fact that John has made it clear he's going to go out and schedule about as tough of a non-conference as you can get while still putting a couple bye games in there. And you're going to get baptized by fire. And if that means Duke has 3, 4, 5 losses before January 1st, yeah, it's going to feed into some trolls that want to say how bad of a coach John Shire is compared to Mike Krzyzewski. I think John has figured out that's the best way to condition his team to be playing their best basketball later in the season, which is really the only thing that matters, right? Like, Duke is in the business of playing for a national championship every season. To win a national championship, you have to be playing your best at the end of the season. And I think that's where John goes with going out and Texas Tech in the Garden. December 20th is just the latest example. I think their opener is against Texas in Charlotte.
Right.
They've got the Champions Classic on the schedule every year. They're going to have an ACC SEC challenge game, and I mean, they're never going to be playing like Vanderbilt in the SEC challenge. So it's going to be a really difficult schedule that accelerates the growth of the freshman class.
I want them to play Vanderbilt in the SEC challenge at some point. And at Vanderbilt, right, where they've got the benches on the baselines there, just because it's always strange to see. And as a lifetime full of watching Duke basketball, that truly would be insane to see the Blue Devils with the bench on the baseline playing in a venue like that.
I do think Mark Byington is a good coach. I think that he will leave Vanderbilt before he builds Vanderbilt into a perennial contender that is going to have people frothing at the mouth to see a Duke Vanderbilt matchup.
All respect to the Commodores is what we're saying here. But it's going to be a crazy impressive schedule for the Blue Devils out of conference, also in conference. They're going to be tested for sure in so many ways. Let's actually talk a little bit about that, and we'll continue that portion of our conversation in just a moment here on Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever before to play smart and win big. With FanDuel's NBA betting, no action tonight as the Thunder already took care of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Major performance last night from Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks to force a Game 6. They'll be back in action tomorrow, and you can see all the biggest lines, odds, and numbers for that game over at FanDuel. Are you new to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up in these playoffs. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, we move forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson alongside my pal Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated, talking about this Duke basketball team. The roster's in place. You want to test some of the inexperience that might be there. And let's be honest, there's inexperience in terms of a cohesive group. They don't have experience playing with one another. And so with that, you've got a really tough non-conference schedule. We also now know the details of this ACC schedule that Duke has coming up this year. We learned a few weeks ago that it would be reduced from 20 games down to 18 and a bit of a different format as we've kind of got that laid out on the screen here, Connor.
Yeah. Obviously, Duke's primary partner is always going to be UNC for as long as they're in the same conference together. Duke's rotating secondary opponent that they'll play a home and home with this year is Louisville, which I think is fantastic. From if you're a Duke fan and you were hoping for BC or anything like that, I don't know what to tell you. I think it's not ideal. Like we're going to wind up saying this over and over again for as long as we have these mega conferences where you just can't fit enough games to satisfy everybody. And you can't have the schedule get longer.
Right.
Like March Madness is always going to have to come in March. You're not going to start playing basketball games in September to accommodate a home and home with everybody in your conference. So I love the fact
that is, yeah.
Yeah, I love the fact that Duke plays Louisville twice this year. They're going to be probably two of the top three in everybody's preseason ACC poll, if not the top two. They did great work in the portal. They got an intra ACC transfer that everybody will know with Isaac McNeely coming over from Virginia. They get Kayshawn Pryor back, who when Duke played them in the regular season last year, they had just lost him. And I think that was a big reason for Duke winning at Louisville was kind of struggling to figure out what they would be without Kayshawn Pryor. They really hit their stride after that game against Duke in Louisville. I think it's a great matchup. And then, you're going to play everybody else once, and with the exception of one, and that's where I think you can criticize the ACC for leaving Miami off of Duke's schedule. I would have loved to see a Jay Lucas against John Shire game. They're good friends. I think I just saw another interview with Jay that was done by John Rothstein where Jay said his intention was to stay with Duke through the NCAA tournament, and it's basically like you're not going to be able to do that type of discussion that he and John Shire had, because Jay wants to win in his first year at Miami, and he's had to cobble together basically an entire roster through the transfer portal, and then snagging Shelton Henderson from Duke. So all those storylines kind of get shoved to the side, and we'll see a Duke-Miami game in the 26-27 season, which seems like it's a eon away at this point.
Yeah, and then it's just it won't feel. I mean, we'll kind of be used at that point to Jay Lucas being the Miami head coach. He'll be more established in that role. I don't think it would be near as emotional in some respects going up against Duke, where if it would be the very first season, you might have some of those lingering emotions that take place, and familiarity with guys on the team right there. A few players, that's another element here, because I've been thinking about Shelton Henderson's dynamic going up against Duke, and that's not being played this upcoming season. There's a very real possibility several of the guys that even played for Jay Lucas this past year, now you're having to go through a whole entire new season coming up, and who's to say they'll be on the squad next year? So then it truly does just come down to this John Shire versus Jay Lucas reunion, and no kind of similar ties out there on the floor.
Yeah, and look, how cool would it have been to see the Boozer twins go back to play a game at Miami?
So true, yeah.
Their high school and AAU coach is on Miami's staff now. I'm
What a
blanking
point.
on
Yeah.
I'm blanking
Yeah.
on the name. Yeah, it made a lot of sense. Obviously, like you're gonna miss one opponent in the conference, and the ACC is probably gonna make sure Duke and Wake play every year. They're probably gonna make sure NC State and Duke play every year. Those are games that make more sense than Duke playing Miami. I don't want to mention BC again as the team that could have been lopped off, but like, could we have done without a Duke Syracuse game this year or a Duke Notre
Georgia
Dame game
Tech.
this year? Georgia Tech, a lot of other schools that would not have hit as many storylines as a Duke Miami game would have.
We get to see Duke go out to California in ACC play this season. They'll play road games at Stanford. Never been there before, never played a game at Stanford in that one. And then they'll go to Cal Berkeley. One would assume that they've never played there before either. I was looking this morning, though, and it appears the 1982-83 season, way back then, there's an away game that Duke basketball played in Berkeley against the Cal Bears.
Wow.
So first time since then for that one. But, yeah, you've got to go out to California twice to play conference games after Duke hosted both of those teams this year.
Yeah, and to use my dual beat expertise here, Cal and Stanford didn't have great seasons, obviously, in the ACC, but they did defend home court pretty frequently. Wake Forest went out there, I believe it was February, and they were the first ACC team to sweep that trip in winning at Cal and at Stanford. And I think there were maybe 7 or 8 schools that had failed to do so to that point, and some of them were decent teams. So it's a little tricky to go travel 3,000 miles and play and then play again on the West Coast, because the way the ACC worked it was 2 teams from the East Coast would go out there and play a Wednesday game and then stay out there and play on a Saturday. So it's almost like you have traveling partners. Yeah. So whenever Duke goes out there and plays, say, at Stanford on Wednesday night, somebody else will be playing at Cal on that same night, and then they'll inverse it for the weekend game.
Well, I'm excited to see the schedule come together. Excited to see what Duke's going to have this upcoming season now that we've got a better picture of the squad, and we'll be able to have more and more in-depth conversations about these individual guys and what the changes look like for Duke basketball in the days and weeks to come. What's happening right now, though, is that we've reached postseason mode. In another sport, we'll talk a little bit about this Duke baseball team heading to the NCAA Regionals and competing this weekend when we return here in just a moment. Thanks so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and your first watch here today. For your second listen, be sure to check out the Portal Show. Locked On's very own Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. It's a really good show. I think you'll enjoy it. Be sure to go check it out. Here we are with Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated talking about Duke athletics, and we're on the eve of the month of June being played, which means we've got to go into the postseason with the batted ball sports. Last night, we saw the opening of the softball College World Series in Oklahoma City. A year ago, Duke made their first ever trip to the Women's College World Series, and we know with these schedules, the baseball season 2 weeks behind where softball's already at. So today, we get to open up NCAA Regionals for Chris Pollard's bunch as they get set for postseason play, Connor.
Yeah, Duke has Oklahoma State today down in Georgia. It's actually the later game, 6 o'clock, and the TV just changed to ESPN2. It was going to be on ESPNU, which is very helpful for somebody who has a way too expensive already cable package that somehow doesn't
for everybody. ESPN. Yeah, I've never understood that part.
I can get ESPN too, so I'll be able to watch instead of listening on the radio. I'll probably still dial up the radio call from Duke's end, but yeah, it should be a good game. The ball, I think, flies out of Georgia Stadium. I believe Georgia leads the country in homers with 133, and 91 of those have come at home. So I think I saw something where like only 14 or so teams have hit triple-digit homers already this year. Georgia has almost triple-digit homers in only home games, to give you an idea of the launching pad that they're going into down there. So should be an exciting game.
And for this Duke baseball team, last season they go and they win the ACC tournament before getting to play in postseason play. This year they had a very exciting game there in Durham in the ACC championship, but ultimately did not win the whole thing. So as they go into postseason play, where does it seem like this team is at?
Seems like this team is certainly good enough to win a regional. I tend to think if you're good enough to win a regional, you're good enough to win a super regional.
Sure.
It's baseball. It's such a matter of whether things break your way or not, whether your pitching can line up or not. Duke turns to Owen Proch tonight. He's been their Friday night guy really since about the second half of the season. Him taking the ball on a Friday night at Virginia when Duke was 2-4 in the ACC and coming off a sweep against Stanford really kind of got the gears turning to turn Duke's season for the better. He was not good against Florida State a week ago. Not Florida State. I can't remember. Yeah, he did start Florida State because the game before was a bullpen game. So Florida State hit him hard. And talking to Chris Pollard about him both after the game and then on Monday after their selection show, there was a feeling of that was just kind of nerves, adrenaline. Chris Pollard wanted him to just wash that taste out of his mouth, and he wanted him to have the confidence that like he's their guy. Like he's going to start tonight. If Duke is in a super regional, he's starting game 1 of the super. If Duke makes it all the way to Omaha, I think it'd be the first trip since 61, but don't quote me on that.
That's a long time.
It's been a while. Then Owen Proch will be the starter in Duke's first game in Omaha if they get out there. So that's the confidence that he has going forward. He's put up some dynamite starts this year. It's not a pitching staff with a lot of length, but it's a pitching staff with a ton of depth. And that's kind of been the story the last couple of years for Duke. And so we'll see how things shake out for him today.
And for people that are going to be able to see Duke baseball play, because again, they're on national TV, it's the postseason. There aren't as many options in the sports world right now in the calendar. So they might be joining this Duke baseball team at the end of the year, the perfect time. They've won a regional 3 times in the last 7 years under Chris Pollard's leadership. And talking about pitching depth, the reason this is so important, Connor, for those who are new to the sport or new to kind of figuring out the regionals, is this is a double elimination format as you get into the weekend. So your arms will really be tested. 4 teams in Athens. Duke will play Oklahoma State. Georgia set to take on Binghamton, and then the winners will face off against each other. The losers go to the losers bracket.
Yeah, and that's you have so much strategy that goes into this during the week. And one of the things that the host team can do is opt to play the earlier game on Friday, which looks like what Georgia did. Now, I preface that with looks like because I've also been told sometimes TV tells the host team, we need you to play the earlier game.
Right.
And when TV says something, that's what you do against maybe what that team actually wants to do. But however that shook out, Duke plays the night game tonight, 6 o'clock against Oklahoma State. If they lose that, they've got to turn around and play tomorrow at noon. Mm-hmm. So it does put the losing team tonight in a little bit of a bind. If you have a reliever who needs to go out there and throw 30 to 35 pitches, he's probably not available to play in the next game that's less than 24 hours away. Or he's probably on a limited pitch count where he can maybe give you 10 or 15 pitches, just throwing numbers out there. But it does give the host a little bit more of an advantage if they can win that first game in the afternoon. Then you've got the extra rest to play the night game the next day. And then you have the entire discussion of do you throw your ace in game 1? It matters a lot more for the 1 seeds than it does the 2 and 3 seeds. Like the 2 and 3 seeds, you think just
this is a 50-50 game. Like, let's put our best out there.
They're going to be a pretty even matchup most of the time. But the hosts always have to make the decision, okay, do we throw our ace against this 4 seed that comes from, I believe Binghamton was in the America East Conference.
I'll take your word. Yeah.
Do we throw our number 1 guy against them, or do we throw some, Saturday or Sunday guy and then save our ace for the Saturday night game against presumably the winner? That can backfire if you lose to the 4 seed, and then all of a sudden you're throwing your ace in an elimination game. So it's a weird obsession. I get that not everybody follows college baseball, and it can seem like it's way too many balls in the air and just go out and play baseball, and that's what it does wind up feeling when we get to this day. But for the last 4 days, that's a lot of the discussion is, how do you set up your pitching? Do you want to play in the first game or the second game? All that stuff.
It's going to be fun to watch. And again, Duke will play Oklahoma State, and they will take on, if they win, the winner of Georgia and Binghamton. It'll be concluded throughout the course of the weekend. If Duke wins, they get the opportunity to move on to the Super Regionals, and they would be 1 weekend shy of getting to go to Omaha, as you said, for the first time since 1961. Pretty awesome stuff. I'm confirming in your story here that you've written it's the first time since 1961. I bring that up, Connor, because I want people to go read your story and other things that you got going on. How can they get involved and support your work?
Yeah, come on over to duke.rivals.com. Devils Illustrated is going to cover Duke basketball, Duke football, and Duke baseball. We're gonna hit a lot on some things that people might not be thinking of. It's going to be unbiased and objective coverage. We've got some exciting stuff going on in the works with the Rivals and On3 merger. I can tell you that Devils Illustrated is still going to exist through then. And I hope you come check it out.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll have you on again soon, Connor. Thanks for the time today.
Thanks, JJ.
All right. That's Conor O'Neill joining us here on today's show. Make sure you go support his work. Once again, one of the best that there is. Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated. Always appreciate his time there. Make sure that you subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils as we're getting closer to June here and into the offseason, continuing to want to grow our numbers here as we're getting closer to 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. All thanks to you guys and your support. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.